Hello, and welcome to another World of UX podcast. This is your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us on today. A special welcome, as always, to those of you who are joining us for the first time. Another post-anniversary show here. I mentioned that we were going to be extending these a bit because everybody's schedule is so crazy. But we're I know, 5 months later. So what? I'm just glad when, as I always say, I'm always glad when somebody comes on the show. I'm always glad to share another voice. I'm always glad to speak with someone and to share the stage, so to speak, with someone with such a phenomenal background, a phenomenal passion for the discipline, and somebody that really cares. There are so many people in UX today that are doing what they're doing to make a name for themselves. But some of us genuinely care. And so I am proud and honored to share the airwaves today with someone who is a fellow educator, someone who has been in UX since well before I was even into it, but somebody I've been hearing her story for a while, and I just geek out when I hear when I hear people talk about certain things, and I just like to sit back and just shut up and listen. And this is one of those people I love to just sit back, shut up, and just listen because she has so much to share. And more of these voices need to be heard in UX today. There are people who just popped out the womb that are acting like they're experts. They're not. We need to stop, but I'm going to stop right there and reel myself in. I always let the person introduce himself, but I'll give you the person's name. I am so happy to share the airwaves again today with Elizabeth Rosenzweig. Take it away, Elizabeth, and tell the folks who you are.
Thank you, Darren. Well, it's so fun to be here with another veteran. So let's see. It's been a bunch of decades. I'll just say that. More decades than you. All right. We'll put it this way. Back when dinosaurs were roaming the earth, I was doing UX. So just think about that. But anyway, but my background is actually photography and graphic design. And I went to a college that sadly no longer exists called Goddard College in Vermont. It's like Antioch. And it was so small, they sent us to other schools for like 2 semesters, different times. So one I got to do at the San Francisco Art Institute. And then one was actually what's now called Mass College of Art and Design, but used to be called Mass School of Art. So anyway, so that was fun. And then I was a photographer for a few years in Vermont, art and I don't know, all sorts of professional photography. And I'll just be honest with you, I got a little tired of Vermont. It was great, but slow. So I decided to apply to graduate school. And I wanted to go to Rhode Island School of Design and get an MFA in photography. And my parents, in what retroactively I see as very good parenting, suggested me to apply to more than one school. And my dad was, of course, into MIT. And it turned out they had a photography department there, except for the person he thought that I would be interested in, Minor White, had died. However, still got me. Long story short, got me to apply to something called the Visible Language Workshop. And so much to my sadness, I did not get into RISD. And then I got into MIT. So I had to pivot pretty hard. To be honest with you, it was a little rough. Not a little rough. It was pretty rough. But I came in at a time when they were actually open, like the Media Lab where I went at MIT, was bringing in artists who hadn't programmed and then programmers who hadn't done art and mixing us up. And that was awesome. That was awesome. I had to learn to program. Got to tell you, that was not awesome, but I did. I can read code, and that helps me. Being able to read code, really, it was so painful. I can't. That's like a whole nother conversation, but
yeah.
But I learned it, and so I found that helpful. So what I was doing was human-computer interaction. And working in photography. So like I when I graduated, I had, I worked for AGFA, I worked for DuPont, and then finally Kodak. So to me, this was all a dream, especially as a younger professional. And the field was developing. So first it was HCI, and then we were just doing usability engineering, thanks to Jacob Nielsen. And then finally we got to UX like in the 90s. So it was kind of nice in that regard. Like I really loved working at Kodak because I was in the research labs. And we had a liaison with the Media Lab. So I got to work with my buddies from the Media Lab. And it turns out we actually invented iPhoto, but Kodak got super scared. Yeah, I know. I finally learned to say it that way because it's true. And I can go into that if you want. But, and Kodak, they were so risk averse about losing the film business to photography that guess what? They lost the film business to digital photography. Because we patented everything. Mm-hmm. And then they didn't want to develop it. And then when they went bankrupt, they sold it to Apple. And then Apple was like, oh, iPhoto. But also Apple had come to the Media Lab when I was there, and several other of the people I worked with were there. And this was like right after they introduced the first little funny Macintosh. It was like,
yeah, the one with the little 6-7 inch screen, and it was like a
cartridges.
Vertical,
yeah. So they had seen some of what we were doing, and it turns out we were also inventing Photoshop back at the Media Lab.
Wow.
The Media Lab's a great spinoff for all these things, and so I was always involved in anything photography. So that was fun. That was fun for me. I guess that brought me up to the 20 years in, I'll say, corporate imaging, which was great. It was really, really fun. And then I went out on my own in 2005 and consulted. Really, really loved the consulting. And then in 2010, went and worked at the Bentley User Experience Center and also taught in the graduate program for 10 years. And then sort of went back and forth between consulting and a gig at a company or two. But I think where I am now, I'm teaching at Brandeis, and I'm teaching at Mass College of Art, doing a lot of consulting, writing 2 books. So
wow.
Don't really have a lot of spare time. That's okay.
Right.
To do other things, but it's fine. So I guess I got into UX somewhat accidentally, but my light bulb moment was this. I remember doing some medical imaging at Kodak. And we were doing, I can't remember, we were inside a hospital somewhere with some surgeons or some radiologists or all these people who had gone to school much longer than me. And they were I was asking them questions about what they were doing on the machine. And then at one point, and this happened several times, one of them said, I'm just not that good at technology. Like a couple of them said that. And I literally said, I know I went off. I'm not supposed to do this. I lost my objectivity. I was like, you went to medical school. Smart person. That's when I learned I need to change my dialogue during the interviews. However, that was the aha moment. That's when I thought we needed something like World Usability Day, because it was why do people blame themselves when technology goes wrong? And highly educated people who could do surgery, who could run radiology machines are sitting there I'm not good at technology. How did we get there? So that was my okay, I'm in. This is my life work.
Wow.
This is insane. Because why should a machine make you feel stupid? That's just dumb. Maybe it's because I was at MIT and I do think now that I'm saying this to you. No, because the times I was in these teams with the developer and I'm the artist, there was an openness. And I think it was early in the development where we both knew that we didn't know something and we needed to work with someone else who did. But now there's something about, I don't want to, developers are brilliant, smart people, and I don't want to diss that, but there's some weird thing where, and maybe it's just kind of what we were talking about before about how divisive the world is. For some reason, instead of trying to collaborate, it's a line in the sand. And no, that's my territory. No, I own the user. No, you don't own the user. I own. No, I know. No, that's too hard to program. I'm not going to do it. You know what I'm saying? And it's it's not, it's just not helpful.
That's wild. I mean, you just remind me, in saying that, you remind me of, I had mentioned a post on LinkedIn.
Yes.
That one of those little questions. I hate them, for the record, those of you listening, I hate those questions. A lot of those questions are downright pathetic, and they come from an amateurish mind, and questions that there's no such thing. I understand there's no such thing as a stupid question. I do not agree with that. It depends on what defines or what qualifies as stupid when you say that. But some of those questions, an amateurish question, in other words, a question that is poorly constructed, a question that's not honest, a question that does not yield a response that's going to benefit the hearers, those questions need to cease. And so those questions I stay away from. But someone did ask about the developer thing, and they said, what do you do? How do you manage a situation where there's a clash with developers? And I said, well, first, you need to not drink the Kool-Aid of a clash. There is
Nice.
there is no clash. If you're going one way, if you're on a two-way street, you're driving down a boulevard in your local town. Boulevards are usually two-way streets, so I think that'll work for the metaphor.
Okay.
Two-way street.
Yes.
There is the only reason that you clash with someone going in the opposite direction is because one of you crossed the line.
Yeah, you're not in your lane. Is that what
you're not in your lane. And so I said, you need to, my answer to this question was, first thing we need to do is constructively work to understand each other's perspectives, responsibilities, and deliverables, and then develop a respect for one another, work to generate mutual professional respect. And when you lay foundations like that and understand what they need to deliver, they need to understand what we're delivering, what our purpose is. We need to understand what they're delivering, what their purpose is. Now we can come together and we can work. Collaboration is natural, but we have to work for it. And I've seen so many developers on the line of what you just mentioned, Elizabeth. They want to be designers. A lot of the ones I've met in my career, and they are some of the worst ones.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to say. I want to be careful too, just because, like, I guess. And this is interesting. We touched on this a little before. I'm not afraid to say what I think, as you know.
Yep.
But as I've gotten older, I realized, well, also you don't have to say everything you think.
Right.
You don't actually have to say everything you think. You can.
Yes. Yes.
No one's going to stop you, but is it always a good idea? Now, in the sense of like just trying to think about, I look back on my time developing as a developer. I personally didn't like it because to me, I'm a very a more holistic thinker, a more visual thinker, and I think that like programming is very linear, and this is my and I think that we need that. I like totally respect someone who can write a very good, efficient piece of code, and that it comes to them quickly. That's impressive to me, and I want to work with that person. But I also want them to understand that they're not designers. So that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where we have problems because sometimes, look, there's companies I know where it comes from the very top, like the COO or the CEO or the VP of engineering, and they're like, UX is our secret sauce, and guys, we all just have to work together, right? And if you get that, which is rare, then you can really do an amazing job, like an amazing job. But that's rare.
Yes,
so
it is.
what's more often is like you're saying, right? Like we care about the user. Oh, yeah. But then they don't understand what that means.
Right.
And,
it's a cliche.
Like when you say amateur, I feel like it's people who don't understand complexity and depth. And so like they're coming in with maybe not a lot of experience. I think that the idea of someone being or like you were saying, an amateur, which I agree. I'm not disputing that there are people who don't have a lot of experience who come in and act like they have a lot of experience. That is 100% happening. I still don't quite understand why. I'm a big why, like I always want to know why. And then as a student of psychology, I think, well, there's something going on ego related.
Yep.
We'll just say that. So then, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm as I get older, I'm trying to be more diplomatic.
Yeah.
But we all have our different roles. I like your voice a lot. I'm just a slightly different, I'm not afraid to be controversial. But anyway, I think the problem is there's this weird respect. Like, how do you get respect when somebody doesn't respect you? Or how do you get respect when they have a giant ego involved? Sometimes my most recent thinking, and also this is not just like for work, you just got to be you. You just got to not have whatever they're doing, like change who you are.
Yep.
And in that regard, then we could be good role models. So that's, I guess, what I'm trying do. And then also one thing I've learned, because I've done a lot of like career coaching, because like I'd like World Usability Day to get on the calendar of the UN and and I'm like, okay, well, you do something you've never done before, you obviously need help. Like you need more
Yeah.
input, you can iterate all you want on your own. Iterate, but like if you don't get new input, you know. And part of it was I realized I was doing too many things, so I couldn't do like everything as well. So I had
Mhm.
to obviously, I mean, it sounds like I'm saying this like, oh, you just learned that. No, I've learned this my whole life. It's just each time it's a different round, a different version. So in general, and I think I learned this at a company that I was running a design system for. I won't say who, but between all the JIRA tickets and the quarterly planning and the 1 week sprints, like it just felt like chaos to me anyway. It felt like, why I can't I like think it past a quarter? No. I'm like, okay, well, we'll never get past a quarter if we don't think past a but I don't okay, choose your battles, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so I think for me, I was just trying to focus now on like a few things, like the UX UI thing is one. And also it's coming in though, and I haven't figured out yet, and maybe we'll talk about this, but like, so how can we get people to be more thoughtful, be more collaborative? It's like, has everyone turned into a narcissist and everyone has to do something themselves? I mean, I hate to, you know what I mean? But we can apply our UX skills to these problems,
Yes.
like what's our personas?
Yes.
And the cases, you and I could go on forever, but like, okay. And then how are we going to unpack that? Because, like, yeah.
It's so wild. And that's one of the reasons why the things you just mentioned, why I talk about the importance of EQ.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
whole
yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
intelligence bit. I do the diplomacy thing as well, but I
I know
also
you.
I pick and choose when, because there are just some people. It's like you can't be diplomatic with a psychopath.
No, I agree. I mean, that's sort of my evolution too, is that there's certain situations, like I have high values and I have high ethics.
Yep.
I'll say that.
Yep. Same
And
here.
I never want to lie, and I
Yep.
always want to make people be the best they can be, and yada yada yada. It's not just I'm saying,
Yep.
but there are times where you think, it's not really serving me well at the moment. I don't mean like to manipulate people. I mean like I'm dealing with a Nazi. I can't be honest with a Nazi. I'm just saying. That's in my
Yeah.
parents' background, so I could use that.
Yep.
And it's like if you're in a situation, I'm not saying we're all like in a Holocaust or anything, but I'm just saying sometimes there are moments when you think, no, this is wrong. This isn't right. The way this is playing out is wrong.
Yep.
You got to focus on the thing that, yeah, it's not really that straightforward, I guess, sadly.
It's not. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
And which is again another reason I love EQ, because it's EQ that enables us to manage moving target scenarios. And
Well, it's so yeah. So emotional quotient, like as opposed to intelligent quotient. I mean, the EQ also helps you manage your own feelings. I think that's
yes,
not just pick up other people's feelings,
yes,
but manage your own. And I think you can't have one without the other, because if you are I'm not saying out of control. All right, I'm trying not to do a value judgment, but if your feelings are running your life, let's put it this way, you are completely run by your feelings. Then you can't see anything else anyway. And so then you're off. You're
yep,
just going to off.
yep.
But if you can feel your feelings, not let them feel you, feel your feelings, and then keep your balance,
yes,
and you don't get so triggered, then you can handle it better. But and then you're a good UXer also if you have EQ, and then that gives you empathy.
yes,
But any researcher needs to understand their own bias and their own reactions,
yep,
like 'cause otherwise. So that's part of EQ, it seems to me.
yes, yes. When you say that, you remind me of I spoke at World Usability Day is in that's November, right?
November
Yep.
14th.
It
The
was a world.
second,
It was a World Usability Day. Sorry.
yeah, no. It's always the second Thursday in November. Well,
Okay.
around
Okay.
then.
Because sometimes I get World Usability Day and IA Day mixed up date wise. But
Yeah, that's usually I think in the spring. Or
yes, yes.
last time it had it.
But I'm speaking at World Usability Day. I won't say when or where, but I was speaking at this event, and a person got up to speak early that day. And the person was saying, on the line of what you just mentioned, the person said, we all have biases and we can't get rid of them. This is the first time I delivered my EQ talk.
Oh, great.
I was scheduled to speak toward the end of the day. I wasn't the final speaker. I think I was next to the last speaker. And people are going to figure this out now because I said that. But so it is what it is.
Yeah.
When I heard the person say that, I went, uh-oh, because I knew that I was going to talk about how that EQ enables you to manage your bias.
Right.
That you have to become, self-awareness is the major thing associated with EQ. So if you have a bias and you know now, being an adult, being a person who is emotionally intelligent, you realize what you need to do so that you can optimize operations for everybody. Otherwise, you'd be exactly as you said. You become a slave to your feelings feel you, and now it's going to get out of control.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's such an interesting thing because so I've been in just, I don't know, this is like apropos of nothing, but just you were talking about being at a conference and like hearing someone say something that you may say not agree with. I was at a mentoring table once and that exact same thing happened. Two mentors were at a table and I said what I thought. And then the next person said exactly the opposite me. So I just said, well, don't listen to everybody. Don't listen to everything you hear. Pick and choose. Pick which one makes sense to you. You know what I'm saying? But then that's a slippery slope and gets us to this other problem. But like not every advice is good for everybody is kind of what I was saying. And you do have to sort of, think through your own self, but also within the bounds of like, or I should say the scaffolding of reality and truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's my main thing. So like to come up and say, I, think all UI, UX designers should yada, 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 yada. And I'm just like, yeah, you lost me at the first sentence, but by the first word. But besides that, what makes you like, how come you're the know-it-all? Like, what is that? I feel like in some ways they make themselves more vulnerable. They don't realize it though. It seems strong. It seems like, ugh. So yeah, I just wonder, like I said to you earlier before, like the world is pretty divided right now.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of countries there's wars all over the place. There's people fighting with each other. There's like, Brexit. There's like, not even to mention climate change. I'm not like, gloom and doom, but this is a tough time on the planet.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then this whole field of technology, it's like, I'm a student of history, right? And so I've been looking back on the Industrial Revolution and then now it's like, so there's been a few revolutions and the last one was the digital revolution not that long ago. And the question is like, where has that led us? And I just think about like the Industrial Revolution and all the coal factories. And then here we are, AI, now we need more of these big, machines to process it all. And I just like, from my point of view, from where I sit, I think of like, we need to talk about usability of the planet, like of us with each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we're not saving the planet. We're saving ourselves. The planet's going to be fine. If you look at what happened to the dinosaurs, did the planet go away? No. It was the dinosaurs. So I'm not worried about the planet. I'm worried about the species on the planet.
Right. That's a good point.
But I see, and I think what you and I have in common is this 30,000 foot view constantly. I'm like, okay, why is everyone in the weeds?
Yeah. And then people are in the weeds, but don't know how to deal with weeds. And so then and starting with, I find my thought on that, the 30,000 foot view provides you with a perspective, a broad perspective. Exactly right. The closer you get to a thing is when that 30,000 foot view, I see 15 things of note.
Right, exactly.
Now let's zoom in on them one at a time.
Yep.
Without the 30,000 foot view, you don't know. And as a child who used to have to dig up weeds, and I bring this up a lot in conversations I get into, I know the pain of digging up weeds. I know the first time you do it, you just pull the weed up by its top and you think it's done. And then you wake up the next morning and they're back and you wonder what in the world
Great
just
analogy.
happened.
Oh my God.
Got to get things. So I learned over time, you got to get things by the root.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
big picture, pare it down, then go look at it.
Yep.
Go from 30 feet to 3 feet or 30,000 to 3.
Well, yeah, little
then,
middle. Yeah.
Yep. Then go under. Now I need to see beneath the surface. And that's when we start to make change.
No, and that's really good. So let's keep the garden analogy because I also had to do weeding in my family's little patch in the back. And now I'm a gardener, but I hate weeding. But I do it. But I hate it. But part of it, I love planting. Both. Like you need to do it. But the piece about that in the 30-foot view is so it's an interesting analogy because I have like this patch of lawn that I have decided I'm completely like I just don't want to mow it. There's a lot. I'm planting things. So that's it though. I'm like, okay, 30,000-foot view is there will not be a lawn here. There will be flowers and whatever the heck, but then I got to go down and I can't go right down to the planting or the pathways because I don't really know the middle step. What is my goal? Okay. Getting rid of the grass. That's not my only goal. Like I want flowers. I want a little walkway, yada, yada. So you need to know, like you're saying, like it's where you start is the big picture.
Yes.
Because then I can look around. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, keep the grass over there. Da, da, da. You know what I mean? Like you see what's working, what doesn't. Then you dive in, and then you can start to do. And Kaizen, I know you like that philosophy, like little incremental changes maintained over time. Like that's the formula for everything, right? Little incremental changes maintained over time. So
and they're sustainable.
Sustain. That was the other piece.
They're sustainable. If you do it too fast, it's not going to last.
That's exactly right. No. That's exactly right. You're missing. So if you go straight to the weeds right away, you're missing. And also, you can't stay up there forever. But like you're right, speed, whole thing. Hang on.
Yep.
Now it's a very interesting question. I've been talking to several people now, like you, about like, well, what's the state of UX? Like, what are we doing? Where are we going? And I keep thinking, how do we, and maybe this is my World Usability Day mission, like, but how can we bring these disparate approaches, we'll say, without trying to be too much value judgment, together? Or like, how if we see someone in the field, sort of diminishing the value of the field, we'll put it that way. We need to speak up and we need to move it along. But let's say like I have, a few mentees who work at companies and they don't feel comfortable speaking up. In fact, one of them was
right.
You can tell me not to use UI UX all the time, but my job title is UI UX designer. So what am I supposed to do? They're literally telling me this. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's an awesome question. Can you say UI and UX? She's like, this is my job. So I'm not going to not say it at my job. And you're giving me a brain cramp by doing this. And that's fair. No, but it's fair to her, right? She's junior.
Right.
She's junior. She's not trying to be senior.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that to me is the toughest one. So that's where I start to say, well, our field is evolving. Our field is still evolving. It's pretty young. And we're not going to get everyone agreeing on everything. So I don't want to make this a popularity contest, honestly, but it is a struggle. I don't think I've personally figured it out yet. But like, what's great was the field grew. And now
growing pains.
I mean, I hate to dismiss like some of the certificate programs and some of the boot camps. And again, I don't want to be like an academic snob because I work in graduate programs, but I do feel like there is a difference in training and a difference in the kind of education you get. And I think, it's not like, it's not a field that really, how should I say it? It's easier than it looks. I mean, or harder than it looks. Sorry, other way around. I think our field is harder than
yes.
People think it's easier than it looks, and it's actually harder than it looks. How about that? And maybe that's part of the problem. It's like, oh, I could design a screen. I could do this. I could do that. But no, because you don't even understand your own bias right now. So.
Yep. And one of the things that I think about on that end is like, you might have seen the talk I do sometime where I talk about the 4 pillars of UX, and I group UI work, or GUI. I group GUI and interaction design into one pillar.
Interesting.
Because there are people who do GUI design or UI design for people who, what's a GUI? So for the purpose of this conversation, I'll just say that. I'll just say UI. And they create UIs, but you can, 2 things. I tell people that you could actually design an interface and not use an ounce of UX principles. And they're like, what? I say, you see it all the time. How many times have you interacted with an interface and you can't get anything done? There is always an interface, even if it's just a door. A door is an interface.
Oh, of course,
But to properly do it, you have to embrace like Tognazzini's interaction design principles, or Schneiderman. These people came up with the equivalent of interaction design heuristics. They're usually not referred to as heuristics, but they are heuristics, and they will help people to execute on that interface in a way where it's meant to accomplish what everybody wanted it to accomplish. So, but they're really shocked when I say, this interface. I see people all the time that create interfaces, and there's no UX with that. It's pretty, but it's not functional. I love the picture on the front of the design of everyday things. And I've seen that thing looks like a War of the World spaceship that's supposed to use like a juicer. I've seen it. They had, when I was working at Bosch, they had it in the office, and it is an absolute joy because that thing is a sheer and utter mess. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It probably made the creators a bunch of money.
Yeah.
But don't try to juice with it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's interesting, especially with physical project, but like with my background and when I started, there was no difference between on the screen and off the screen. Everything was an experience. Everything was a device or a thing or an object. And, because maybe it's because also I came up by like really working on cameras. So those are obviously devices, so we always had to do the physical, but it surprises me, I have to tell you, even when service design became a thing with a name, I was like, okay, that's fine. Like we were doing that anyway. If it helps to call it service design, call it service design. Like, you know what I mean? But like it keeps going now, right? I liked information architecture because I thought that was like a little niche that was like, but then that's evolved into, so like we've got our nomenclature problem. That's, it's not helping either, I think.
Right.
Yeah, like you mentioned, GUI versus UI. Nobody even knows what GUI. Yeah, I mean, heuristics. Sorry, you're getting into rant, which doesn't take much. But
no, but rants are welcome.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just a question. It's funny because this term in, I'm teaching both at Mass Art and also at Brandeis. And what's so fascinating, and then having also taught at Bentley, which is a business school, so fascinating to see graduate students coming in with these like literally 3 different points of view based on the school they're at of like what UX is. So it's like what I saw at Bentley was very much on the research and like, the methodology, the theories, very good. But like from the business side, we got the business side, right? And Brandeis is somewhere in the middle. And then I'm definitely like in art school, which I adore at Mass Art. And, I guess I'm saying this because also like, so at every place I go, I give my students a design challenge. That's like always part of my class, right? Okay. This is the first time in an art school that I had a student just tell me, I'm going to build something. And he started to tell me physically what he was going to build and how he knew the engine, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, that's going to be so fun. But like, he just assumed that it didn't have to be on a screen. When I said design challenge, solve a problem, it doesn't have to be on a screen. But a lot of us from the other points of view, like even at like say Bentley, it was like, no, screens, devices. That's another limiting factor. I think that's a recent development though.
Yeah, I agree. It is. I've had a few opportunities to work on devices.
Yeah.
I even had it's a horror story, a little bit of a horror story. So I won't get into this one, not for today, but how that I helped drive the development of a docking station for a handheld automotive diagnostic tool. For some reason, my name was stricken from the patent. So for some reason, something crooked that happened, but that's the end of the nightmare on that because it was my idea. But it was fun. It was fun to do to go in and do some ethnographics research, to watch people work in an auto repair shop, to study them to the nth degree, to understand what was happening with them physically, what was required, understanding the different heights of the people that were working, and then factor all of these different things, interview people, factor all of these things into designing a solution. And first it was the handheld diagnostic tool, and then it was a service cart. I helped design a service cart. So
that's cool.
No websites, no mobile apps this time.
Exactly.
But I found out that UX is pervasive. So, and I think more people are going to start learning that. Some of the people that are working in conversational UX, as they call it now, are starting to learn that it's really, you're applying some of the same principles. There are heuristic elements that apply to a phone tree.
Well, I mean, everything. I mean, think about it, just like I like Jacob Nielsen's, just because some of them are like, very straightforward, sort of mapping the mental model, mapping like what it's like in the real world, and that sort of stuff. But it's also just like you said, the basic. I honestly think you can apply UX principles to every single thing. Every single thing.
I agree.
In your life. Ask my kids. Poor guys. Every time we used to go, I mean, they're all adults now, but every time we go on vacation, every single elevator, I'm like, okay. They're like, I know, Mom. Okay. Here's what's wrong with this elevator panel. My poor sons. They're just like,
I've done it too. Or I'm the one at the airport. I always show up early, but I always love going to airports and studying the parking. And the wayfinding inside the airport, or go to a hospital and studying the wayfinding in the hospital, which is usually god awful.
No, it's scary and sad because people are stressed when they're in a hospital. So they're like already like, No, but it's true. I feel like it's one of those things, once you see, you can't unsee.
Hello, everybody. That's all the time we have for today. We are going to end part 1 of the conversation I had with Elizabeth Rosenzweig. At that point, we will play the conclusion next week. Dynamite insights, dynamite take. I absolutely loved hearing from somebody who was in the field as early as she was, and the types of things that she encountered and her journey. Just fantastic stuff, fantastic insights. And so I hope everybody is getting a lot out of this. But again, we will play the conclusion next week and we'll sign off here. So until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of The World of UX, wishing everybody all the best. And until then, happy UXing, everybody.